that started this.
So FDR becomes our shift. So like I said yesterday, a lot of presidents will sort of sit back and allow Congress to do what it's doing. Okay? Other presidents will try to take more control. FDR sort of starts that permanently. You see it in terms of Truman, in terms of the atomic bomb, or the way that he actually waged war and what he was trying to do. Kennedy does it with a lot of the Cold War stuff. LBJ does it by almost single-handedly increasing our presence in Vietnam and really getting us into that conflict in the manner in which we ultimately end up in it. All right. When we look at the presidency, the first thing that you should understand is that, one, it's relatively easy for the president to exercise power, especially when you compare it to Congress. The simple fact is you have one president. Okay? Anytime the president wants to do something that's within his constitutional power to do, there isn't a discussion, there isn't some sort of long drawn-out process that takes weeks to get through. It can simply be done. All right? Additionally, and I don't know if you picked up on it, we didn't get to watch the video yesterday because it didn't work, did it? Okay. In the video, one of the things that it talked about very briefly was talking about sort of the role of personality in terms of the presidency and how that can impact what's going on. Okay? FDR and LBJ are usually two of the good examples, right? FDR was that sort of grandfatherly type guy who sat and talked to people on the radio, and people listened and they liked FDR, and it's like, oh, he's really looking out for us. LBJ had a little bit different approach. LBJ was a really large man, right? And he loved, like, literally there are pictures that you can see of LBJ talking to people while he was president of the United States, and it looks like the camera is tilted. Okay? Because LBJ was the kind of guy who would lean into you, right? And I mean, he's what you would call a close talker, which I don't even want to like model to one of you because it's one of the most annoying things in the world to me, right? And obviously if the president's talking to you, you don't want to start walking away, right? So literally these people, instead of backing up, they're just kind of leaning back like this, right? And so it looks like in some of these pictures, it looks like the camera is tilted. You see what I'm saying? It almost looks like the camera is tilted. That's a good one. That's actually real. That is exactly how LBJ did things. All right.
Okay, so everybody would just pass the phone around.
I'll try to pull that if you want. I'll pull that up after.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'll pull it up after we get through the PowerPoint here real quick. And yeah, like I said, he's a big man.
It was a black guy.
He just pulled up.
That's all.
Looked up LBJ.
Okay, guys, here's the other thing that we constantly need to sort of remind ourselves of as we're going through this and we're looking at this process. Remember, we're dealing with a document that was created in 1787. In 1787, life was far simpler than what it is today. As society becomes more complex, as that complexity grows, there has to be some sort of government response or reaction to what is going on. Again, significantly easier for the president to react and respond than what it is for Congress. Right? And so that's one of the things that leads to an expansion of presidential power. All right? And then obviously we'd already talked about this with Congress. Congress is going to write things that are fairly broad that actually allow the executive branch to have more power in terms of what it's doing. instances in which the president and Congress will obviously be in conflict, and that power structure or power struggle occurs fairly frequently and can impact how successful sort of government is in getting anything done. One of the things that you'll see presidents do is they will try to claim or state that they have some sort of a mandate, right? This is what Trump was talking about. This is what the left has tried to subvert, right? So Trump, had the largest crowd in the history of inaugurations, right? And he had the largest electoral college victory ever.
Did he say it?
Yeah, well, he said he had the largest electoral college victory in the last 30. I think he said 30 years since Reagan, which is not accurate because H.W. Bush in '88 had a larger electoral victory, and Obama annihilated him both times.
He's such a fool.
Okay, but here's the thing: is then after he was told about Obama, and I mean literally. Right, in '08, Obama's 365, McCain got 173. Right, Trump got what, 306, I think. Okay, so I mean, you're talking about a 60 vote difference. Okay, and then when he was told that, he was like, well, no, I meant Republicans. Well, go back here to 1988 and George H.W. Bush, he got 426 votes in the Electoral College to Michael Dukakis's 111. I don't know what Trump's talking about, right? But I think it's part of this idea of claiming that he has some sort of mandate, that the people are behind him, that Americans are upset or angry or irritated or they felt left out or left behind or whatever the term you want to use is, and therefore he's going to be able to get done whatever it is that he wants to get done in terms of policy. The irony of all of this being, what policy has Trump actually implemented? I mean, he tried to ban people from coming to the United States and that blew up in his face, and now he's trying to do it again, and apparently the state of Hawaii is going to sue him again. Right? If the first one failed, I don't think the second one's going to pass. Because apparently the only real difference is we took Iraq off the list. Alright? But ultimately, Congress hasn't really passed anything. There hasn't been anything that's actually really been accomplished. And so that mandate is part of what we call the honeymoon period. And the honeymoon period is ending quickly. And it's like the worst honeymoon ever.
How long has it been in office?
Trump?
2 months?
No, not quite 2 months. He's pushing 50 days now. He's somewhere, I want to say it's somewhere in the 40s. So he's pushing 50 days. The first 100 days is what we call the honeymoon period. I mean, he's halfway through the honeymoon period and he's done nothing. Okay? LBJ, in his first 100 days, LBJ was able to get like 130 pieces of legislation passed.
Wow. We still have 1,400 days.
Well, here's the thing. The question was, is that good or bad? There are advantages to it, especially if it's legislation that's actually beneficial to the welfare of the country, right? So when you talk about like the Civil Rights Act of '65, the Voting Rights Act of '65, like these are really good things. Yay, like good job. If we're talking about war powers resolutions and sending more people to Vietnam, yeah, probably wasn't a good thing, but that's what it is. The president, and this is the real sort of power anymore, okay? And we talked about this yesterday. We blame the president for everything, or we give the president credit for everything because the president is the one that's constantly on television. Okay? It's so much easier to talk about or interview or deal with one guy than it is with the 535 in Congress. In fact, if you watch news channels and you watch CNN or Fox News News or something like that, they routinely have congressmen on there. And you're sitting there watching the guy going, I don't even know who this dude is. Right? I mean, unless it's like somebody that ran for president, like Rubio or Cruz, or somebody that's actually in a position of power and authority, like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, literally, I saw the majority leader in the House of Representatives on CNN like a week ago, and I was like, I don't even know who this dude is. Couldn't have picked him out of a lineup. Alright. Hey, this move it or lose it ideology, this is the first 100 days, that's what we're talking about. So we're talking about maximizing effectiveness. And this concept of avoiding details is supposed to be a way of maximizing power and authority. And this goes into the fact that obviously obviously the president is not the one that's actually responsible for creating the law. I know the executive branch does it now, not the way that it was supposed to be. And in which case, when you outline details like Trump did in that address a week ago, right, he's like, here's all the wonderful things that I would like to do, go get it done. Right? And you don't have to provide a lot of detail, right? Like, we're going to provide, child care for working mothers. Period. Presidents don't need to be telling how that's going to happen, how much it's going to cost, where the money's going to come from. All of that stuff is irrelevant to the president. And if they really want to get things done, okay, they concentrate on a few top priorities and you're a little vague about them and you let somebody else fill in the details. Alright? I don't know that Trump's figured that out. I mean, that's the thing about Trump, is having had absolutely no experience in government whatsoever, I don't know that he was prepared to sort of understand how to quote unquote play the game. Alright? Then finally, when you're getting things done, and this is something that I think Trump actually has figured out at least a little bit, maybe a little too well actually, presidents will spend more time interacting with and dealing with their White House staff than their cabinets. Do we understand why that would be? So think about this for a second. Steve Bannon is the, what is he? He's the White House chief strategist, I think, or?
Yeah, chief strategist.
He's chief strategist, that's his official title?
Yeah.
Okay, something like that. Why would Trump be more inclined to go to Bannon than what he would to, say, Jeff Sessions? What are the problems that Jeff Sessions is currently facing?
Russia. Allegations. With Russia.
But what does it deal with?
Media.
Congress. The Senate is actually mad at him. The Senate confirmed him. He lied to the Senate. Did Bannon lie to the Senate?
No.
Why not?
He wasn't under oath.
Because he never talked to them. White House staff doesn't deal with Congress. They don't have to deal with Congress. They're not subject to confirmation. And in fact, White House staff, they are loyal solely to the President of the United States. Sessions, on the other hand, his loyalties, by definition, have to be split. Yeah, he's got to be loyal to the President at least a little bit, but he also has to be loyal to the Department of Justice because that's the agency that he runs. He also has to have at least some loyalty to Congress, specifically the Senate, because the Senate was the one that appointed him to his job, and if they don't like him anymore, they can actually put in a vote of no confidence and try to start an impeachment process if they really had grants. Okay, cabinet members can be impeached. All right, George W. Bush had an attorney general that Congress put out a vote of no confidence for and eventually made him resign, like forced him into a resignation. All right. Okay, we're going to run through the roles of the president real quick, and these shouldn't really come as a shock to anybody. Okay, so chief legislator, okay, obviously Congress creates the legislation, but the president does get to propose things. He proposes a budget every year. He gets to veto stuff. He can actually force Congress to come to work if he wanted to, okay, and he does make the State of the Union every year, all right. Chief executive, right? So this is the head of the executive branch. The executive branch is responsible for executing law or enforcing law. Okay, so as the head of the executive branch, he is the chief executive. He's got that responsibility, right? Obviously, that's a responsibility that's primarily delegated to the Department of Justice and other places. And he gets to appoint officials, right, to help carry out those decisions however he sees fit. I do want to call your attention to this. He does get to issue executive orders, right? And executive orders are basically blanket statements created by a president in order to create some sort of policy or precedent. Okay? Did all presidents use executive orders? Or is that an Obama thing that Trump is now doing as well?
No, it's all.
All presidents. In fact, because people loved to sit there and talk about how many executive orders Obama wrote, Obama's not even close to the top. Okay? Obama, basically on average, Obama wrote some, I want to say it was like 80 executive orders a year. Okay? There were presidents that wrote over 200 executive orders a year. Alright? Now, also understand that the executive orders are sometimes overstep the boundary of creating sort of legislation, other times they don't. Right? So I'll give you an example of an executive order from Obama's that would have been well within his jurisdiction. Obama got rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Do you know what that is? And that was a policy in the United States military that if you were gay, you were allowed to be gay. Nobody can stop you from being gay. You can still serve. You just couldn't tell anybody. Right? And nobody was allowed to ask you. Right? So, I mean, if when you were marching, you kind of had a little hop in your step. Like, they couldn't ask and be like,
He's a little gay.
couldn't ask that question. Alright? And so long as you didn't get in trouble, like so long as you didn't like flaunt it, right? You were allowed to serve all you wanted. That went away with Obama. Right? You can now be openly gay in the military and it doesn't matter. And that type of an executive order, that is well within his jurisdiction because that relates specifically to the military and he is commander-in-chief. And to give you another example, you go all the way back to Harry Truman, right, who was president at the end of World War II and then through the rest of the 40s. Truman integrated the military with a single executive order. Done. No more black regiments and white regiments. Integration in one strike of a pen through an executive order. That's his authority as commander-in-chief. What?
When was the don't ask, don't tell like policy like?
Implemented?
Yeah.
Clinton.
So like before that, if you were gay in the military, like from the army, like what would happen?
You were not allowed. There were actually people in Vietnam that were like, I'm gay, I can't go. And then they would be like, all right, you got out of it.
So if you
But here's the thing, is what they would do, because I'll be 100% honest with you, when I was in boot camp, right, we had a guy in our platoon that decided after like 3 weeks of Marine Corps boot camp he didn't like it anymore, and so he went to the senior drill instructor and he was like, I'm gay, and I find you attractive, you need to kick me out now. That's actually what he said. And the senior drill instructor was like, all right, they sent him to another like barracks for like a holding barracks, and then they went and they asked him, and they're like, "What's your boyfriend's name? Who knows that you're out of the closet?" Right? And they started a whole investigation.
Seriously?
Oh yeah.
go to jail.
No, he didn't go to jail. He got in a significant amount of trouble for making false official statements, and then they didn't even discharge him. They separated him. So it was like he was never in the military in the first place. Like if he claimed that he's a Marine now, I might punch him in the face. Like that dude is not a Marine. Alright?
Are you like Facebook friends with him?
No. No, actually, there are very few people that I went to boot camp with that I keep in contact with because I don't like most of them.
I feel like you have like 6 Facebook friends, like your mom, your dad, your wife, and then like
Siblings?
I know. I don't think you have
like 3 exclusive like friends.
maybe some teachers.
Yeah.
They probably do them for stuff.
Yeah. Maybe.
I have no idea how many Facebook friends I have.
UNC basketball.
Oh yeah.
Alright. Some of the checks here on the executive. Okay, Congress has power of the purse, so they get to pay for things. So the president can't enforce law however he wants if he doesn't have money for it, right? Like a president can't just all of a sudden say we're gonna have some sort of police state and the police are gonna come and knock on your door and search for whatever they want in your house because we don't have any funding for that. Okay, can be impeached as well. Oh, the Supreme Court can strike down executive orders too. Understand that. Well, you probably realize that because the courts just did that with a travel ban of Trump's. But I've had kids in the past that they thought only like laws could be challenged by the Supreme Court. Executive orders can as well, right? Exact same sort of concept. All right, Commander-in-Chief, this is the easy one. We all know this, right? Gets to run the military. Chief Diplomat, all right, what this means is the president is responsible for sort of foreign relations. I'm going to give you a very key thing that you need to see here, okay? And it's this idea of receiving ambassadors, okay? It provides diplomatic recognition to foreign governments, all right? So again, you didn't get to see the video yesterday. You would have learned in the video that after the Soviet Union was created in 1917, I think, okay? The United States of America did not recognize the Soviet Communist government until FDR in the 1930s. No other president prior to FDR would take a meeting with the leader of the Soviet Republic, right? Because the U.S. did not recognize them as being a true government. They still saw the Tsar of Russia as being the real government. Right? Chief of State is the ceremonial head of our nation. He obviously goes to Congress and talks about how great we're doing and all that good stuff. Right? Gets to throw out the first pitch in baseball. Right? Little things like that. Right? But it's the Chief of State really is more of a figurehead role. Okay? Chief Jurist, the president appoints all judicial appointments are a result of the President of the United States. But I do want to go over this right here as well. The President will issue pardons and amnesty. And there's a little bit of a difference. Do we know the difference? Okay. President Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon of any wrongdoing as a result of Watergate. Nixon could never be tried for that. All right. Jimmy Carter, on the other hand, provided amnesty for all Vietnam draft dodgers. So what that meant was at the end of the 1970s, if you had left the United States in the 60s and gone to Canada because you didn't want to go to Vietnam, you are now welcome to come home to the United States and there will be no repercussions. Okay?
Was he a draft dodger?
Jimmy Carter? No. Carter was a naval officer during World War II, if I remember correctly. Okay? In fact, Clinton dodged the draft. Obama was never in the military, although it's not like he dodged the draft. He was young enough that there was no draft at that point. And then Trump's basically Clinton. He dodged Vietnam as well. But for the most part, I mean, if you look, Reagan was in the military. Both Bushes were in the military. Before that, Carter was in the military. Ford was in the military. Nixon, I think, was even in the military. I think Nixon was in the military. Most of our presidents actually have some sort of military service in their background. All right. Some non-constitutional roles: head of the political party, chief economist, and again, non-constitutional. This is just something we credit the president with. Okay, is this idea of controlling our economy? All right, we're going to stop there, and that was a little bit longer.